You're only as strong as your weakest link. How do the Chiefs shore up their roster in this draft? Coming up today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom. Thanks for making us your first listen. Make another Locked On show your next listen, because we are free and available for you on every platform, every day, all the time, on every show around the league, getting ready for this NFL draft. We appreciate you liking and subbing and doing all that work and checking out everybody across the network as well as us. If you want that text line, it's 816-357-8781. Breaking news is going to come out there. Remember, we are going to have breakdowns for the whole draft, not just the run up to it, but the event itself as well. So don't forget that. Make sure you check out all of our work. Chris can be found over on KC Chiefs Corner, doing his thing, quarterbacks, cap, etc. Yep, I got the finger right that time. That sounded bad, but it is what it is. And you can get all of his work over there all the time. The Athletic Matrix is out on Rogue APC. I'm burning away on the draft guide. We should have that out by early next week, if not Friday, so keep your eyes peeled. You can check out the rest of my work, and my rankings are going to be released on NFL33.com this year. So go get subscribed over there. And you can always check out RGR Football for our daily stuff over there on that crew. Really excited, because this is where it starts to get funky when the grades are in, and I've seen most of the film, a lot of guys, and we can start discussing about like how that wraps into the actual team. So how will this team look different in 2025? That's coming up later in the show. Who are the special fits, the guys that can really churn in these schemes on this roster in this draft? That's coming in just a couple of minutes. But we start with identifying where you have to shore up that weakest link. And that comes down to, what are the weakest position groups right now? And that doesn't mean that you have to like go all in on them or triple up in draft choices or something like that. But the things that you know that you got to come out of this draft weekend with something to shore it up. If you had to put one on the top of the list, what would it be?
Defensive tackle. Which, I mean, look at what we did yesterday.
Yeah.
It goes right in line with what we did yesterday in the draft. I still think that's the weakest position. And I hate saying it this way, but the reality is I think defensive end isn't too far behind. I do think that they have players there that can be good, but the depth is not great. And when you start talking about defensive end, it's not about, and I want to be clear, I'm not saying stopping the run isn't important, but I don't feel like they have a monster pass rush that teams are going to have to game plan for, game in and game out. And that's what you need in the NFL on a regular basis to win on defense.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, George Karlaftis is a starter. He's probably going to get a fifth year, if not an extension here sometime soon. He and Chris Jones, perennial. After that, it gets a little questionable. Mike Pennell's probably listed to start. If not, Jerry Tillery, another guy nearly as old. So that's your defensive tackle spot. On the other edge, Mike Dana puts in a lot of good work, and he's all over the place.
Right, but mainly run stuffing.
I was just going to say the same thing. He's not a scary pass rusher. He'll get it done, and especially if one of the other guys flushes somebody, he'll be there to clean it up. But he's not somebody you have to game plan in any way. And honestly, at this point, neither is Charles. Charles would be the other option there.
What I was going to say is, he is one of the things that he does so well is he's always where he's supposed to be. He knows the scheme. He knows what he's supposed to do, and he's where he's supposed to be. And while that seems like it's a small thing, not all players are where they're supposed to be on the field, and that's why you have some issues sometimes on defense, and it becomes even more paramount at that position, because if you break contain, the quarterback gets outside you with a Josh Allen, that's a big problem. If you break contain on the running game and somebody gets outside you and they're one-on-one versus a corner, that's usually not a great sign for, trying to take it down a running back. I'm not saying corners can't, but it's just not what you want to happen.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. So I think we agree that is up there. I would actually list probably the tackle, I won't say offensive line, but the offensive tackle position is probably a little bit weaker. And I know that there's an incumbent starter at the right side. But I think there's been a level of play that hasn't lived up to the contract and hasn't lived up to championship form with Juwan Taylor there. And it's not just the penalties and stuff. I do think he's gotten a hold on that. It's just overall getting pressure to Mahomes, especially when you know your the stronger of the two options. You know what I mean?
Well,
So
I don't
know.
disagree with that, but the one thing I would say is that I also think that he looked really good when he was in Jacksonville. He looked like he was going to be not necessarily an all-pro, but at least a Pro Bowl type tackle on a regular basis. The problem is schemes are different. I mean, Andy Reid asks a lot more of the tackles, and it's a different position in Kansas City than it was in Jacksonville. He's not getting any help in Kansas City, generally speaking, and they know what they're getting in him, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, depends on the way you want to look at it.
There are a lot of ways to look at it. I mean, and I try to look at the positive, and you're right. He has been better than we can project Jalen Moore at this point, right? Acquiring tackles at the same point in their careers. Excuse me. It does make it a little bit more difficult, but I'd probably list that as number one, then D tackle. Would you
really
disagree?
You think that's number one? Tackles number one?
I think it has to be, because there's no blindside protector here right now. And the acquisition of Moore is one thing, but that's not proven. We don't know that he's able to go start. So for me, it's still an unknown quantity until it's on the field.
I guess that's fair. I guess I look at it as the thought process of, I think they at least have people that they can rotate in. I don't think that they really have anybody that they can rotate in and get decent starting pass protection or pass rushing from that defensive tackle position. That is a severe problem. And past Chris Jones, we've talked about this before. Chris Jones is getting up there in age. I'm not wishing him harm. I'm not wishing that on anybody. But the reality is you have to have somebody else there, because one injury, he could be out for a long time, and then you're really hurting at that position, and you're really hurting in your pass rush because he is your pass rush.
Yeah. Bottom line, you got to be prepared, and that's the whole name of the game. And for the most part, I think this staff looks forward pretty well. Used to be a little bit more, hey, we're looking 1 year ahead. Now we're looking a little farther than that, and I think that's probably smart. But you got to have the right guys to fit, and there's a bunch of them in this draft. What do they look like, and who are they? That's coming up next. You've probably heard of Chewy. They really do have everything that you need to keep your pet happy and healthy, whether you're shopping for food or treats or even healthcare. Chewy makes it easy, fast, and affordable. They have over 100,000 products, all your favorite brands, and all the toys and beds and grooming stuff that you need for your pets, whether it's dogs, obviously, or birds, fish, even reptiles, and smaller pets as well. Chewy makes it easy to manage their health and their prescriptions with telehealth visits. You can get in-person vet clinics as well. They're nationwide, and auto ship is a game changer. You can set it up for automated deliveries every so often. They never run out, and it's easily changed or canceled at any time. You can get it super, super fast too. I've had orders show up in a day. Chewy has everything that you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. Right now, you can save $20 on your first order if you get free shipping by going to chewy.com and clicking the link down in the description. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping by clicking that link in the description below. Minimum purchase is required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See the site for complete details. This is a fun time because projecting fit is always a challenge, but we kind of got the beat on what the Chiefs like and what they need in years past. So now it's just matching, square peg, square hole. How do you do that? You spend time looking at film.
Yeah, and you got to figure out where you think that they are the weakest. And like we talked about in the first segment, where could they really use the biggest help? This goes back to kind of what we talked about whenever we've done mock drafts. Need is not always going to show up and present itself when you're drafting. So even drafting at 31 in the first round, if you're sticking at 31, good luck picking somebody at a position that you need. That's the reality. I mean, you're sitting there in a situation where you may not get a guy at a position that you really feel like you need. And it stinks because you would love to say, okay, yeah, we'll go get a defensive tackle. Well, if there's a defensive tackle that you don't have anybody, with until a third round grade, you don't take him at 31.
Yeah.
You look at a different position. Wide receiver would be one, tight end would be one. Like those types of positions that you don't necessarily feel like you want to be taking because you don't feel like you necessarily need them because I think they're stronger than some of the others. You may not have a choice. So when you look at special fits in Kansas City, it also comes back down to, yes, you want to get the guard situation figured out. You want to get the tackle situation figured out. You want to get defensive tackle situation figured out. But special fits might not be any of those positions because those might not be the guys that are available. And I don't think Veach is going to stay at 31 because that's generally not what he's done in the past. But you have to have somebody to trade with you.
You do. And we'll go over trade scenarios here as we get closer to the draft, folks. Maybe before the end of the week, but definitely next week, as moving around the board is going to be a challenge for Brett Veach and something I do think he has to do. But it's funny you mentioned wide receivers because that's the first position group that I think is kind of in turmoil right now. If you guys are following the draft on other media, our guy Field Yates has made some interesting reports lately about what he's hearing around the league. And I've heard it from some of my people as well, that maybe this wide receiver group isn't as special as everybody thought it was. And that maybe the league is not as high on it as they were. Some questions about Tero McMillan and his commitment to the game. Some questions about how dedicated Luther Burden's going to be to being a professional and watching film and doing all the things you need to excel. Could see wide receiver as a group falling down the board. The guy that is special to me from what I've seen on film in terms of fitting into the Kansas City offense, he's not a big dude. He's not a small dude. He's not the fastest, but he's clean. He runs good routes. He can play all three positions. He's been challenged, and he's been kind of the last man standing in the Ohio State offense. Emeka Egbuka, if Field Yates and some of the other reports are true, that now he's looking at possibly not going until the second round. If the Chiefs are stuck at 31, he's a fit in this offense that could walk in and not have as much of an adjustment period as Rashee Rice did, not have as much as Xavier Worthy did, and be another guy that you can throw into that weapon room and start the offense churning a little bit more.
Well, and I think when you start looking at what that would mean for Kansas City, you put yourself in a situation where you have Rice coming back from an injury plus suspension potential. You have Hollywood Brown, who is perennially injured, unfortunately, in his career. You have a guy in Juju Smith-Schuster who has been injured a lot over the past several years. So getting another high-round talent at that position makes a ton of sense just from the aspect of you're only one or two hits away from, or probably 2 or 3 hits away from losing some of your biggest players at that position, and then you're really going to be hurting.
Yeah. It's that close. And as much as we like Nico Remilio, and I think he has earned probably the first shot at being the returner, that's just one spot. And if you have to press him in action on the field, on the offense, it changes the whole math.
It does. And I have to give credit where credit is due. Xavier Worthy did a fantastic job staying healthy the entire season. Mm-hmm. I did not expect that. I thought that he'd get some kind of injury, and it wasn't necessarily that he wouldn't be able to take the hits. It's with his speed. I'm thinking hamstring injuries all the time. Like that was going to be my guess, and it just never happened, which is great for Kansas City. But you have to have those. You have to have multiple people at that position that can really take this offense to the new level, because I think part of what happened to him in the playoffs and the Super Bowl specifically is you're not on the same page with a guy like Hollywood Brown. And obviously you lost Rashee Rice. He's not playing, and I get that. But when you're not on the same page with your wide receivers, it causes issues. And the offensive line was a big enough issue. But you still need multiple guys at that position that you can trust and to go do what you need to get done. And they just didn't have it in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that it's too much that you can't ignore it now. You got to go past and you got to go find it. There's also, you have to bolster, like you said, one of the weakest positions is the defensive tackle group. There's 2 players in that group that I think are special fits for Kansas City in very, very different ways. And the one that I think most people are going to identify and be happy about is another player with some question marks, like Burden and McMillan. Walter Nolen has got some questions around his character and about his dedication. Guy has bounced around, I think it's 6 programs in 7 years, high school and college, making money that whole time as well. So like, it's definitely part of the equation. But as I finished up my defensive tackle rankings, all the film work and all my grades got in last week, I went and I reviewed, and I just want to take another double check about who's the best fits. And he is one of the rare commodities that is not just an oversized man that's good for his size. He is an actual pass rusher, much like Chris Jones is. He is a guy that he's probably better rushing the passer than he is against the run. And that's what he's there to do. He's ferocious. He brings that edge. He reminds me of Frank Clark and Chris Jones's body in terms of size, because he plays with an edge. And I think that's something that this defense could really use. I know there's question marks about his character, but if that gets sorted out, we know the Chiefs aren't very bashful about taking a chance.
No, and I mean, they've got somebody that would be playing right next to him that I think could really help him with when you start talking about character. And I'm not saying that Chris Jones has ever really had that issue, but Chris Jones is a leader on this defense. He is not going to put up with somebody coming in and getting in trouble and causing issues in that locker room. And if being in the same position group, I guarantee you Chris Jones is going to be in his face, not necessarily in his face, but trying to be in his corner and trying to get him to go in the right direction, because Chris Jones is getting to the end of his career, and anything he does going forward is all about winning Super Bowls, getting more accolades in Super Bowls, and winning more games. So anything he can do to further that is going to be beneficial to him. And I do think that he likes taking those young guys under his wing. So it would not shock me for them to give him a chance.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. The other guy that stood out to me, and this is, so you got to look between the lines a little bit here, but knowing that we just lost a player that the Chiefs made a late round pick in and really put their effort into developing. When Turk Wharton left, I think you got an idea of what the process should be for a late round pick, a UDFA, whatever level it is. And the guy that I think is probably fringe day 3, he might sneak in the top 100, but I doubt it. It stood out to me just how much TJ Sanders from South Carolina resembles what Turk Wharton looked like when he came out. A good athlete, under 300 pounds, moves well, has good hand usage, can get away and get off of blocks. The shedding's there, but he doesn't have the sand in the pants as much as, a guy that's going to take on doubles or anything like that. But he can grow into that. He's a good athlete, not as good as Turk. But as I was watching, that's what really stood out to me, is that the way that he moves and can take advantage of playing between George Karlaftis and Chris Jones and whoever else is going to be on that D-line. I do think he's a guy that later on, not with the top pick, could be somebody that fits into the scheme.
Well, and they need multiple defensive tackles. I would not be opposed if they ended up taking 2 defensive tackles. And as crazy as this sounds, if the draft falls the right way, I'm not going to care if they take 3.
Ooh, that's a lot.
They haven't invested in the position in years. Like, if you really look at it, they have not invested at that position. Derek Nottie was their biggest investment since Chris Jones, really, at that position. So you need defensive tackles. I'm not saying that I want them to go out and draft 3, but when you start talking about 6th and 7th round picks, if they get down to that point, if they pick another defensive tackle, it is what it is. If the guy ends up on the practice squad for a year, so be it. They still need depth, and they still need young guys. That's a position they could use all the youth that they possibly could get.
I agree. And maybe one of the practice squad guys can step out too. They still have Marlon Tuipulotu on there. Siaki Ika is on there. And my guy, Lovett, is still there. So maybe that practice squad year can help him bust into what is the echelon now that gets on the field. We'll find out. But things are going to be different one way or the other. What are they going to look like? That's coming up next. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving away new customers an incredible way to get into the action right now. When you join FanDuel and you place a first bet of $5, you can earn up to $250 in bonus bets if that bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes it easy no matter what season it is. Now that March Madness is over, we're moving it on to the NBA. It's going to be baseball, and then we are going to finally get back to ball on the field for the NFL. From 3-pointers to steals to assists to making those kicks, it's all here, and your chance is at FanDuel. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Okay, so pure speculation. When everything's said and done and they've gone through this draft, when we see OTAs or we get to camp, what do you think is going to be the big things that stand out? What's the biggest thing that you think is going to look different?
When I think of what this team did last year and what I think that they were built to do last year, and the difficult thing for me is when I saw them at training camp, the offense looked different than what we ever saw throughout the entire season. Because you had Rashee Rice, you had Xavier Worthy, who was coming in and getting acclimated to things. He wasn't fully there yet, but he was getting acclimated. But the big thing is you had Hollywood Brown. And to me, that changed things for this offense. And when he wasn't able to play, that takes a whole huge portion of the playbook out. So him coming back is going to be a big addition, regardless of everything else that's done. The big question is going to be, can they get another guy that can come in and beat the man-to-man and is still okay against zone when you start talking about the wide receiver position? You have to have enough guys that can go in there and play against both zone and man and get open and give Mahomes another target to be able to take this offense to the next level. Because the reality is we saw it in the Super Bowl, something that we didn't see most of the season. Mahomes finally started trusting Xavier Worthy, and maybe it was just because he felt like he had to at that point, but it was still a hell of a throw. And it shows that the chemistry started to get there. And if they can build on that this year, because I'm sure they're already working on it, but if they can build on that this year, it takes the game and it takes this whole wide receiver room and this Chiefs offense to a whole different level.
I agree. It's definitely going to be something that could really change the outcome. And, a year later, maybe you can still execute the same plan. We'll see if there are other bit players that are involved as well. On the other side of the ball, the thing that I think is going to look drastically different, but yet kind of a throwback, is you're going to have what I think are more physical outside corners, and you're going to see Trent McDuffie in the slot. Maybe not all the time, but a lot, because I don't think you have right now another guy on there that you feel you can throw out there game after game after game. As much as I like CRW, I don't know that he can sustain being the nickel, and I think the experiment with Shamar and Connor should be over. So Trent moves back inside unless there's a matchup where they just want to have him shadow someone, or they make maybe they get lucky and they make some kind of acquisition like Maxwell Hairston in this draft, who is maybe the smoothest, not only just the fastest, but the smoothest nickel corner prospect in this class that I could see them looking at. But I think what we're going to see is Trent back inside, which I think is not only a plus for coverage, but it means he's going to blitz more too, and I love that.
You do love Trent McDuffie blitzing. He is fantastic at hiding the blitz. He learned a lot from Legarius. Legarius was fantastic about doing that as well. And that's also, I'm sure that's partially Dave Merritt. So I'll give credit where credit is due. But, you look at this offense, you look at this defense, and the other thing I think that you're going to really see is if they go out and they acquire a defensive tackle or two and they add a defensive end, pass rush could be something that this team could lean on a little bit more than they've been able to in the past, and they absolutely need that.
Yeah, that will protect everybody, because you're talking about not having your most experienced player in the secondary any longer, with likely Cook kind of calling the shots at this point. Connor's played a bit, but I don't think he's going to be making a lot of those calls. And you would like Hicks to step into that role as well. I do believe that Mike Edwards is back as a safety backup, a safety valve backup is what I should have said. I don't think he's meant to be a starting role. Yeah, safety. That's perfect. I don't think he's meant to start. And I think if they get in a pinch in this draft, there are some safety prospects this team might like, and they might go ahead and draft one anyway.
Yeah, I don't think that he's here to start. I would agree with that. And I would also say, while I think that safety was a position that they could have been necessarily targeting in the draft before the Mike Edwards signing, I don't think it takes it off the board that they take one. Like, does it take the chances of it down? Yes. But if there's somebody that falls, it's somebody that falls. It goes back to what we talked about in the first one. It's not a weak position group, but actually, this is in last segment, talk about special fits. It's not a weak position group, but it's all about, can you get somebody that's going to fit exactly what you need? Can you get somebody that is going to be able to help you in different roles that you don't feel like you have right now, that can maybe do multiple things as opposed to just one thing?
Yeah, be a Swiss Army knife. And apologies, folks. I am under the weather, to say the least. So hope that didn't ring in your ears too bad. The last thing that I think has to look a little bit different is they have to have more explosion out of the backfield. And I don't know if that just comes in the form of another signing, but running it back with Kareem and Pacheco does not give you that explosive threat. Now, Elijah Mitchell might, but coming off injury, you never quite know. So I do think that there has to be a speed acquisition in the running back position. Probably late, probably UDFA, but it's got to be somebody that isn't a primary ball carrier in my mind. It's got to be the home run hitter, the third down type back, somebody they can go to when they need a bolt.
Yeah, and they need something that is going to be different than what they have. And you're right. I mean, you look at Kareem Hunt, you look at Pacheco. Somebody said, and I don't remember who it was, said on X the other day that Travis Kelce looked like he was running with semen in his shoes. And I'm not going to say that to an extent, but Kareem Hunt isn't far off from that. Like, he's going to get you positive yardage, but it's not going to be big part of positive yardage. Right. He may get, 5-6 yards a carry. That's fine. And that's great. That's what you want. But he's not going to get you the 20 or 30 yard runs. That's just not going to happen. And giving him the rock on a regular basis and giving him 10 to 15 carries a game is really going to hamper what you can do at that position.
It just makes you not scary. Yes, you got to respect it, and they're going to grind it out, but it doesn't make the home run really.
He can be your goal line guy and short yardage guy for sure.
Agreed. But I got Carson for that, so the Man of Steel can take care of that. So I'm not too worried.
Yeah, we're assuming that Carson makes the roster this year.
We are, because he will.
he may, but if they draft a running back, then they've got. I mean, then you're sitting at 4 running backs before you even talk Carson Steele.
True. Folks, we're going to have our first 53-man projection probably the week after the draft, so stay tuned for that, because it will all change with that. But that's going to do it for us today. We're going to be back with you. Matt, Derek, joining us, giving us the lowdown on some of the scenarios that we need to be paying attention to. That's tomorrow, and then we'll be back later in the week as we continue towards the draft. More of my guys as the draft guide gets closer, and we get more of an idea about who can fit where and when. So thank you for your time today. We appreciate you being with us. Make sure you like and sub and hit the bell. Hit another Locked On show with your next listen. We appreciate you very much. Have a good one. We'll talk to you tomorrow.